Good morning, friends. Hello, hello. Welcome this morning. Hope you're doing great. Got a little mug up this morning, little dementia-friendly Fall River. We did a training here a few years ago back with staff and with some volunteers on how to care for those in our midst that are in the process of forgetting in some ways, and so how to be friendly and care for them, and some of the things that are helpful and some of the things that aren't. It was a great training, and so it made me think of it that my good friend Robin Carden out in Sutton's Bay Congregational is doing a sermon series on dementia and on God's remembering. Gosh, I don't know if I can go listen to it without turning into a puddle, but she is doing great work out there, as so many people are. But how we care for those in the forgetting is such a powerful thing. So, hey, good morning, Donna. I hope you're doing great. I think on this, it was some stormy weather this morning, but the sun is coming out now. Like all reality that the world is, no matter how hard the wind blows, no matter how much the rain falls, the sun always comes out. That all storms pass, and the great and grand gift of that. Good morning, friends. Hope you're doing all right this morning. Get a few minutes, got a few more folks coming along. Doing great. Good morning, good morning. Raining, still raining there. All right, well, better times coming. So, good morning. All right, let's get going this morning. It is the 22nd day of October on this Wednesday at 11:11, and I'm glad you're with us today. There is a line out of the Beatitudes, out of the Sermon on the Mount, that is at the kind of summation part of it, which Jesus says, therefore, so he's kind of like, okay, I've said all these things to you, so now he says, be perfect, therefore, as your Father in heaven is perfect. Like, man. And that line, I mean, the people have done a lot with that line over the years of what does that mean? How are we supposed to be perfect? Like I can't even get the right amount of cereal to milk on ratio going on. I always end up with either more cereal or more milk. I can't get anything right. How am I going to be perfect? The only thing it makes me think of is Kansai Airport in Osaka, Japan. Osaka is the third largest city in Japan. Kansai Airport gets anywhere from 20 to 30 million bags a year, or 10 to 30 million bags a year, depending on what's going on. And in 30 years of being open, since 1994, so 31 years of being open, they have never lost a bag. Now, the average is about 7.5 for 1,000 of every 1,000 bags in the United States gets lost, depending on the airport and how busy it is. But that's about the average. So you got a pretty good chance of getting your bag lost if you're flying around, but not if you're flying through Kansai Airport in Osaka, because Kansai Airport has never lost a bag in 30 years. Can you imagine that? That they have these systems in place where they make sure every bag that goes on the plane is counted on and counted off, so that there's never a bag that. There's never a bag, and there's all these checkpoints in which all the bags go through, and that number has to match leaving the counter to getting on the plane, to getting off the plane, to getting back onto the thing. That they're constantly doing these checks, and it has worked out for them. So, but the thing is what Jesus is really driving at is not that we should have to put all these grand systems in our life that in order to be perfect, to not ever get anything wrong. Because this translating as perfect, it's not wrong, But what it's really pointing to is to be complete. You could also translate that, the way that word is meant, is to be complete. So be complete, therefore, as your Father in heaven is complete. It's really about wholeness. And an image you can use is like the hull of a boat or the hull of a ship. It doesn't let water in. It has integrity. We saw a hull has integrity if it's in the water and it doesn't leak. And that it's complete. It is perfect. It is putting out its divine. It is right function. And this notion of being, but a lot's been done with this notion of being perfect, and certainly, there's been a moral club that's been waved over all of us at one point or another about getting it wrong, or the wrong things that we have done, or the shame that we carry, or the hurt that we've done, or we've inflicted, or that has been done, or has been inflicted upon us, and all the ways in which we can feel bad about that. But what Jesus is calling us to, after all the summation of the Beatitudes, of all of the invitations and the ways to be in the world, is he's saying that it's not about getting it always right. It is about bringing it all to God. It is about all those places in which we've fallen down, and all the places in which we've gotten up, and all of our responses in between. And the ability to let those places be touched by the grace of God, by God's profound love for us, to let God go into our mistakes, and to let God go into our successes, and the places we get it right and the places we get it wrong, and let all of it be elevated and whole. That we get into that. What Jesus is suggesting is where we get ourselves into trouble is when we start to hold back about bringing things to God. When we find ourselves with a sorrow that we just say, oh God, there's nothing that can be done with that. We find ourselves with a anger or a grief or a bitterness in our heart, or a resentment, that there's nothing can be done by that. And that to be complete is to bring all of the ugly, all of the worms, all of the things that crawl around within us, and offer them up, even those up to God, and see what he will do with them. Because in the fullness of God is the fullness of God's grace, and that the fullness of God's grace can take even the worst of us, even the most broken things, even the most difficult things, and give them purpose and meaning and wholeness and healing in our midst. We've been talking a lot about Brian Fox and his incredible military series that he has down at the Narrows. If you get a chance to go down and see the exhibit, it really is fantastic. I hope you'll do it. But some years ago, he did a series called Murder, Inc., and he did these 3 portraits and we don't really know what they looked like, so they were really interpretive portraits of 3 biblical characters. He did Moses, he did David, and he did St. Paul. And the thing that we forget about all 3 of these is Moses and David and Paul were all murderers. Not just like, oh, they killed somebody in battle. No, they murdered people. Moses murdered the slave master that had raised his hand to the Jewish people. David murdered Uriah when he coveted Bathsheba and sent him out to die on the battlefield. Paul murdered the Christians before he was, as he hunted them down before Christ came to him and opened his spiritual eyes. And they are 3 of the greatest saints of the church. They are 3 of the greatest heroes of faith that we have, and as we follow Jesus. And all of them, were not morally pure, but they were complete before God. That when they fell down, when they missed the mark, when they brought their whole selves to Jesus and the one and let His grace, let His Spirit move through them, not that they would capture it and be able to do magic tricks, but that they would let God's Spirit move through them and over them and around them and cover over all the imperfections they had done so that the work of their lives could be whole and complete. We even think about it in terms of relationships, that we can think about, that every time we leave somebody that we love, every time we depart, out of the house, or we take somebody, that if we were to never see that person again, if we said all the things that we need to say, have we done all the things that we need to do, if the relationship, or if they were to leave this world, would the relationship be complete? Well, that's what Jesus is calling us to live our lives in every day, to live our lives in completeness, in wholeness. That doesn't mean we get everything right, but it means we do give everything to the one who made us so that he might make it right. There's this old story of Vladimir Horowitz, was a famous piano player. He was supposed to perform in Chicago, and Franz Moore, the chief concert technician of Steinway & Sons, was assigned to take the piano and to make sure it was just in perfect condition. And so he did everything he knew how to do. Moore worked on the piano, got everything, but until Horowitz tried it out, he couldn't relax, and he couldn't, and until he'd kind of gotten through his first number, he couldn't relax. And as was his custom, the pianist left the stage, but this time he didn't return after the first number. And so Moore, the guy who had set everything up, had set the piano up, the whole thing, he's panicking, and he's called backstage. He says, "Where have you been?" exclaimed Horowitz, thinking that he had, because and wondering Moore wondering what it was that was the problem. He says, Horowitz says, "I cannot play again," even though his first number sounded perfect. And that the crowd in Chicago was wowed by the artistry of the beauty of the artist that had brought into the world. He said, "I cannot play again," said Horowitz. "The piano stool is far too high." And Moore, at this point, trying to fix it so that he could get him back out, he says, "Well, how much? How much is it? How high is it? What is?" And Horowitz held up his finger and thumb and said, "This much." About a quarter of an inch too high. Friends, Jesus is inviting us not to let the things that we can't bring to God stay in the way, not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good, not to let the perfect take us away from the opportunity to know the one who made us, to love the world, to bring our song and our gift to the world that as we are and as we are made, to simply not let the beautiful music that is placed within us to be brought into this world not to be played, because the goal is not moral perfection, but the goal is that we might be complete as our Father in heaven is complete, that we might be whole before God in our full selves, and that the grace of God may take all of that, all of the stuff that we would consider bad notes and wasted lumber, and make a mansion for us to live in. So be perfect, friends, as your Father in heaven is perfect. Peace and grace to you, my friends, and we'll pick it up tomorrow with another 11:11.